Okay, so let's start. Again, thank you very much everyone for joining us today, and welcome to the webinar introducing Cos4Cloud, how will it benefit the citizen science community. So before we start, let me introduce, let me do a first round of introductions. First of all, I am Ángela Justamante. I work at the communications department at CREAF, which is a research center focused on ecology and forestry applications. And also I co-lead in Cos4Cloud a communications strategy. So I will be the webinar moderator. Also, we have here today Sonia Liñán, who works at the Marine Science Institute ICM CSIC, and who is also part of the Cos4Cloud coordination team and head of the communications and citizen engagement in Cos4Cloud. She is also a researcher at the ICM CSIC, and she will be the chat moderator. So if you have any specific question related to Zoom or you experience any trouble, you can address her. Also, we would like to invite you to follow Cos4Cloud on social media and visit our website. We have LinkedIn, we have Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, and we are quite active. So if you are interested in citizen science or in technology, in nature, you will find a lot of information there. Also, before we start the webinar, we would also like to invite you to be part of our community. You can join any of these three groups. You can help because we need your help and collaboration. It will be a pleasure to have it on the co-designing group, the panels, or the testing. For joining us, you can scan the QR that you can see on the screen. And also Sonia will send you a link to our co-design and panels and testing survey. And also, if you are interested in co-design, the first co-design sessions will be on the 10th and the 11th of March. So we invite you to join us and explore your creativity with us. So let me also introduce the speakers. We have here today Jaume Piera, who is the Cos4Cloud coordinator, researcher at the ICM CSIC, and also associate researcher at CREAF. Jaume is also a citizen science expert and recently has been elected to be part of the new European Citizen Science Association's board of directors. We also have here today Karen Soacha, who is part of Cos4Cloud coordination team and leading of organizing the Cos4Cloud services testing, and she is also a researcher at the ICM CSIC. Furthermore, we have two of the developers of the service developers of Cos4Cloud. One of them is Alexis Joly, who leads the development of 4 of the 11 services that Cos4Cloud will offer. Also, he is researcher and leader of the well-known citizen observatory Plantnet and LifeClef at the Computer Science and Applied Mathematics Institute in Riva. Last but not least, we have Santiago Martinez, who leads the development of 2 of the 11 services that Cos4Cloud will offer. He is the CEO, the CDO, and the founder of the company Bineo Consulting. So welcome to all the speakers, and thank you very much also for having joined us today. Let me also give you an overview of the agenda. It will be divided in 4 different parts. During the first part, we will explain you what Cos4Cloud is about and which are our main objectives. During followed by a second part where Santiago and Alexis will explain you the services, some of the services that they are developing. And we also will dedicate a time for questions and answers. So please write all your questions on the chat, and we will, Sonia will collect them, and we will answer all of them at the end of the webinar. Finally, for the ones who have more comments or more questions, or want to talk to the coordinators or to the services leader, we will also open 30 minutes for discussion on Zoom after the webinar. So thank you very much again, all of you, and I think we can start with the webinar. So I don't know if Jaume or Karen, could you share your screen?
Yeah, do you have, okay, I will share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to allow me to share screens. I guess I cannot now. Maybe, do you need to make me co-host to do that?
Could,
let me... 1 second, sorry, I thought I had already. 1 second.
If you want, Jaume, I can share mine. Then anyhow,
Okay.
it's the
That's fine.
same.
That's fine, Karen. So if you want, you can do it.
But sorry, Tim, something. No, I have the option, but it's not available for me either.
Okay, I will try then. Okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, now I can see your screen, Jaume.
Okay. So I hope you can see my screen. Okay, I will go up. Sorry, because, okay. All right, so let's, okay, so briefly what we will try to do in a very short presentation is to introduce some of the main concepts that are related with that project. Basically, we will try to just describe for those who are not already familiar, what does it mean citizens observatories, what are the Cos4Cloud services, and how these services can benefit the overall performance of those observatories. And related to that, we will try to explain the benefits of the citizen science community with this project, and also we will introduce how you could be part of this Cos4Cloud community. So basically, Cos4Cloud try to be a kind of bridge between the citizen science and its related platforms, the citizens observatories, and a relatively new concept that appears in Europe in the last 2-3 years, that it's called the European Open Science Cloud. The idea behind, or the idea of the EOSC, the European Cities Open Science Cloud, is the idea, you know, to merge or to connect different infrastructures, European, in principle, European infrastructure, but maybe in the future could be extended to a wider scope. But the idea is that, you know, to try to share many of the existing infrastructures to connect, to take the benefit of sharing resources, data, connecting scientists globally. More or less the view that you can see in that slide, it's more or less the general concept. You can see that there are also some services and resources linked to the EOSC, and one of these are networking, data management, storage, and so on. And within that concept, we decided to connect as an infrastructure the citizens observatories, because we thought that it was part of the infrastructure we could include. The idea, well, as you know, citizen science tried to be a kind of bridge between science and society, and this makes basically that citizens are actors contributing to citizen science with new perspective. We will try with citizen science to solve some societal challenges, and for doing that, we try to define methods and platforms that empower citizens. Among them are the citizens observatories. In fact, the citizens observatories try to respond to a particular need that we try to summarize with this sentence, that we need, for many of the environmental challenges we want to address in the future, we need more data everywhere and all the times. And basically there are like two main approaches right now, general approaches. One is to promote advanced technologies, as the one you see on your left, about advanced remote sensing platforms, autonomous systems, and so on. And the other is to empower people, because people is everywhere at all the time. So if we can facilitate somehow that these people can be involved in the process of providing us information, I think for us it's crucial. And that's the idea of the citizens observatories. What are the challenges of those that we have identified on many people? In many cases, there is still low interoperability. So there are difficulties that different type of citizens observatories can exchange data or information between them, because there is some interoperability barriers that we want to solve. Also, it's important, as you know, that in citizen science, the idea of validating data, there is still, we think that we need to improve the levels and the methods and the standard methods sometimes of data validation. There will be also some low technological capacity in terms of that. In some cases, many people are willing to participate, but they found some technological barriers on using such a kind of infrastructures. And one of also the key questions is that sometimes maybe the observers still have some lack of recognition in the way they participate. So what we will try to within Cos4Cloud is to address all these challenges and provide some services, co-designed services that can provide some solutions to those challenges. And I think, Karen, it's your turn.
Thank you, Jaume. I will use your same presentation. So connected to Jaume, essentially, how are we going to co-design these 10 or 11 services that we will put or we will publish in the European Open Science Cloud? We have like two main pillars. One of them is the great group of citizen observatories that are part of the consortium of Cos4Cloud. They are bringing a lot of experience and already communities and technological development over the one we are constructing all the new services, and especially the identifying of the needs that really citizen observatories are and the challenges that are facing nowadays. Actually, iSpot, iWater, Arportale, Natosfera, Plantnet, Other Collect, iSpecs, Canario, and Freshwater Watch are part of this community of citizen observatories that are working on the new services. The other pillar that I want to point it out, next, Jaume, please, is the co-design strategy. As mentioned before, our project is called Co-Design Citizen Observatory Services for the European Open Science Cloud. What does it mean, co-design strategy for us? This is the process that we develop. Essentially are 7 steps, starting from identify the challenge, and the challenge, it means the issues, the needs, the requirements, with the technological mapping and the stakeholders mapping. Stakeholders mapping, thinking always in the 4 helix model. It means thinking in government, NGOs, society, agencies, and industry, because we want to really address and involve them in our community of co-design and hand by hand going forward with the development of the services. After that, we frame the needs, going in a cycle of testing and testing and testing again, the deployment, and finally publish the service in the EOSC for the implementation. This co-design strategy is the methodology that are leading the community that we are conforming nowadays. Next, Jaume, please. And based on those 2 pillars, we are developing essentially 11 services that are, I will just mention very fast some of them, because today we will go on deep with the Cos4Bio and Cos4Environment, leads by Santiago. That is essentially an online portal for experts to identify to verify, identify, or validate observations coming from citizen observatories, especially in biodiversity and environmental. Next. The data use notification services that is trying to address a problem that we identify is the necessity to recognize the work that users and citizen scientists have been done. And it's essentially to recognize the use of the data that they are contributing to the citizen observatory. When you contribute to a citizen observatory, you want to know who is using this data. In a publication, on a book or something like that, we want to create a flow and a services that can notify to the direct user this use of the data. Next one, please. Another one is the mobile interface that is essentially a generic mobile interface to capture data from do-it-yourself devices, Bluetooth devices, and other kind of low-cost technologies that will be available for the community. We think that this is especially interesting for community makers that are trying to capture data from all kind of devices using mobile apps. Mecoda is going to be a service for facilitating analysis from the community of citizen scientists. Essentially, it's going to be a kind of Python code to run analysis and to visualize data coming from the citizen science. And next, please. I will mention just two more because the other 4 are led by Alexis, and he will explain more that all related to Plantnet Api, natural geospecies, and so on. I just want to finish with 2 more, that is Cos4Cloud and Cos4Cloud Edge, that are services oriented to camera trap community, how to filter unwanted videos or images coming from this monitoring of especially mammals and other kind of species, and how to improve their process of selecting the videos and the photos that you want from that. We are doing a very special like a kind of launched recently, that is the creation of a camera trap using a Raspberry Pi. Then it means you can build your own camera trap very easy in a very low cost way. We invite you to search in our webpage of Cos4Cloud about the information and all the guidelines for doing that. Next, please. Those 2 L's, AI, geospecies, and biodiversity, the L will be explained for Alexis. And the final one, Authentics, is a service to really facilitate the open ID for the people complying with the General Data Protection Regulation to services related to OSC and the citizen science. And finally, again, invite you to join our community. As mentioned, Ángela, I just want to add that the benefit to join our community is to participate in especially in dedicated activities of training and interaction with naturalist makers and other kind of people that can join in the design of the services. We invite you to be active in that, and to follow us in our channels for keeping update with the news and the release of the services. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Karen and Jaume, for your amazing presentation. So I think we can keep going on with Alexis.
My screen.
Thank you.
Is it okay? Do you see my slides? Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I
Okay. So,
sorry.
So hello everybody. So I'm gonna present the service developed by Plantnet in the context of Cos4Cloud. So first, a very brief word about Plantnet. So Plantnet, it's a citizen observatory of plants biodiversity, and which originality is to rely on artificial intelligence to help people identify plants using their cell phones. And so it's used by about 10 million users now in the world. So some for their personal usage, like trekking, gardening, some for their professional usage, so in agroecology, in land management, and a big part is, of course, for education, formation, citizen science, and research. And so all these users contribute to the database to a collaborative encyclopedia. And so we are collecting a lot of data about plants biodiversity, and so the services are about that. So the services that we are developing in the context of Cos4Cloud are of different kinds. So the first one is an identification API. So it offers to external developers the possibility to integrate the identification engine of Plantnet directly in their application. And so basically it's a web service. You can see on the bottom left here, the typical URL that you use to submit images of plants. And as a result of this web service, you will get the same results as the one you see in Plantnet app, but in a JSON form as a web service that you can integrate directly in your own application. So this is secured by a key. There are many features like multi-images. You can select a flora. So most of the functionalities that are available in Plantnet app, you can have them in the API. Also the most similar pictures that are returned. So as two concrete examples, Plantnet API is used in two citizen science projects. So one is an observatory of pollinizator, which is called SPIPOL. So in their protocol, they need to identify the plant before observing the insects that are going to pollinate these flowers. And so for that, they use Plantnet for this identification. So another example is Stella Botanica, which is a network of botanists running different observatories. So about seasons, phenology, about wild plants of streets, etc. And so they are also using directly Plantnet in their own application to allow people to identify plants. Sorry. So no, Plantnet is only about plants, and so we are running all the stuff ourselves. But if you are interested in constructing your own automated identification tool for other kingdoms or other orders or personal list of species, this is one of the things that we are developing in Cos4Cloud. And so at the end of the project, the idea is that you will only provide a list of species, and then we will automatically deploy in the European Open Science Cloud an API, a web service similar to the one I showed you for plants, but adapted to your needs, so adapted to the list of species you provided. And so for that, we are developing several tools. So the first one is a data loader. So it's a Python package that allows to download training data to train the identification models. And so it's publicly available on GitHub, and it's relying on JBIF platform. So JBIF is the world's largest platform for biodiversity data. And so we are relying on this platform to collect the images. So this includes also some images of the partners like Plantnet or other observatories in the project. And then we are using a service of EOS which train deep learning models, and then we are deploying the identification itself. And so we are currently working on that. So last service we are developing is to predict or to know the list of species that are likely to be observed at a given location. So you just provide a coordinate, so geolocation, and it will return you the list of species that are the most likely to be there. And so these are several potential usage for citizen science, such as planification for BioBlitz or for events, games, like if you want to organize games like find this plant or find this different plants, you need to know which plants are at a given place. Or if you want to evaluate the impact of habitat destruction at a given place, etc., etc. And so we are working on these services. We are using also some artificial intelligence technologies to run this. And so for now, we have a prototype that is running at the European level. So it's still quite a bit slow, so it still needs improvements, but it should be public during the year, this year. And I think I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much, Alexis. I think it's an amazing work what you are doing with your group in INRIA, at INRIA. So I think you can start your presentation, Santi. If you are ready. Okay, we can see your screen, so perfect. Santi, you are muted. Yeah. Santi, we cannot hear you.
Now?
Yeah, now.
Okay, perfect. And present. Okay. Okay, our mission in Cos4Cloud, our main goal, one of our main goal is create two different portals. The first one that we are implementing during the first, we implemented and we are continuing implementing during the first period is the biodiversity expert portal, the Cos4Bio. Sorry. Here in my first slide, I think that the first important thing that we have to understand, and the first thing that we did at the beginning of the Cos4Cloud is understand the current situation that we find in the biodiversity citizen science context and observatories that work with observation from citizen science. During the last year, we find and there appear so many citizen observatories in which the people can contribute with their observation using different kind of device like mobile phone and cameras. And each citizen observatories they have their own way to show this information, the meta information that contains the observation that the people share through these different citizen observatories. They have their own way to show this information, and in each citizen observatories there are their own rules to identify and to validate the information that the people contribute in each citizen observatories. And if we analyze this situation, you can realize that we can find several problems. And the first problem that we can find is that we find different access point of biodiversity information in different observatories, biodiversity observatories or environmental observatories. Also, we find that the meta information in the different city observatories are not standardized, and each citizen observatory could use their own species list and their own hierarchy, so it's not unified. The people have to invest a lot of time to search biodiversity or environmental information if they want to create a whole data set from different citizen observatories. And in some cases, some particular citizen observatories doesn't have a lot of contribution from the expert in terms to the identification process to identify the observation. And the last one that Jaume commented before is in so many cases the contribution, the citizen has no any recognition. So to try to solve this list of problems, one of our main goals is create a unique framework, a unique space in which we are integrating we are integrating all the information, all the observation that belong to the different observatories. But it's very important to say that we are not storage anything. We are just mapping the information. This is our first work, what we are doing, mapping the information, the different fields that compose the information, the meta information of these different observation. We are creating a layer that allows us to unify the information through this unique space that is in this case Cos4Bio, in which the expert can log in the system using another service of Cos4Cloud. This is Authentic service, that is a federated authentication system. The expert can use Facebook or Google or another login system to log in Cos4Bio and use a unified search engine. So in this search engine, the expert can search by a species name, and in this functionality, we are using the GBIC backbone list. So with this functionality, we try to unify the list of species that the portal is managing to search by a species name, and the portal show a list of the coincidence of the species that the expert could search. So the flow of information is very easy. When the expert says something, click on the one specific observation. The idea of the expert portal is that the different experts from Europe, from anywhere, can contribute with their comments and also with their identification. At this moment, when someone adds one identification on one comment, this comment goes directly. We send this information to the related citizen observatory. In this way, we want to create a circle feedback in which each citizen observatory could increase the amount of the identification that they receive when the expert go to the Cos4Bio portal. Also, another important thing that we are implementing is the functionality to download through Csv files, because if some expert want to download a set of observation from the different portal, they have to go to the different portal and download information. And in this case, one expert, one person that wants to investigate something can download just access to the Cos4Bio portal, a set of observations that belong to the different citizen observatories. And we are going to integrate a service, and the notification service that would be very useful to notify to the users, to the contributor, the original contributor of this observation, when someone downloads the observation and when someone use this observation in a paper or in some place on internet. I put here the URL. Right now, during the first period, we create the first prototype using the co-design methodologies, and this is the public space that anyone can access. And I have here the public space, and anyone can log in through Authentic system that I commented before. I already log in with my Gmail session, and in this case, we implement the functionality of set by species name and set by place, also using the nominating service, and we implement a very easy filters at this first approach. And I would like to count with your participation in the co-design, in the next co-design group, to increase these kind of functionalities and improve the UX and UI interface of this portal, or also the next portals. In any case, I put here an example. I don't have enough time, Ángela.
Yeah, you have enough time. So
okay, thank you. I said in this example as a species Pica Pica. In this case, this observation belongs to Natosfera that was published 8 days ago, and I'm going to click on this particular observation. Someone in Natosfera told that this is Pica Pica, and I'm like an expert. I can say yes, it's a Pica Pica. Pica Pica. And I put the Pica Pica Linnaeus, okay, and I can write my comment. We are also implementing in the next phases, we are going to integrate an algorithm that allow us to translate the comments in the different language. Right now I put, yes, it's Pica Pica, Pica Pica. I'm going to add this identification, and here in the URL, I have the ID, the original ID in Natosfera. So if I go to Natosfera and I, well, the demo, I should see the Pica Pica, my Pica Pica observation. Why? I don't know why I'm seeing my identification, but the idea is that the Cos4Bio portal contribute with more identification in the different citizens observatories. In each citizen observatories finally can validate this information, the identification of the different observation. And that's right. I don't know why it's working right now. Is the demo, but that's all.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Santi.
You're welcome.
I also would like to add that one of the first co-design sessions is about Cos4Bio and Cos4Envy, and I think it's on 11th of March, isn't it, Santi?
Okay. Sorry, could you repeat me?
That the co-design session that you are for your services is on 11th of March.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
so
right.
we invite you to join.
Yeah, please.
Help Santi co-design these amazing services.
Yes, I have shared the link for registration in the chat, so anyone that can assist to the workshop can register through this link, and they are welcome.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Also, I would like to ask you to fill out a short post-event survey so you can share your opinion and your insights about this webinar after we finish it. And I think we can keep going on. And for now, we have a couple of questions. So let me see it. Okay, so the first one is addressed to Alexis. And I think it's related to the iNaturalist, and it says, so you are training it with GBIF data?
And so it depends on the service. So I will share my screen again just to well clarify things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So for the Plantnet API, so the one that is the most functional currently, we are not training on GBIF data, so we are only training on Plantnet images and some providers we are working on, but we will use the tools we develop to also enrich the service soon. Also something to add, I don't know why this slide has been skipped when I was presenting, I don't know why. Also Plantnet is now a provider, a data provider in GBIF, and And so this is also one of the services we offer through Cos4Cloud, is to access Plantnet data through GBIF or through the expert portal, as Santiago said, or through a sensor things API. So this is also kind of service we provide. And regarding this, so when we will develop this tool that allow people to train models and to deploy them on other kingdoms than plants. So in this case, we will mainly rely on GBIF. So the models in that case will be trained on GBIF data, actually, including Plantnet, because Plantnet is part of GBIF, and also Artportalen, and probably iSpot soon, I think, Natosfera also, I think they are thinking about it. And for this service, we are also using GBIF data. So to predict the species, we are using the occurrence of GBIF. And so in the tool, I can show you maybe a few seconds. So we have different models so far. So when you select a place on a map, like here, and that you search, we have different ways of predicting the species. So one of the ways is just to download the GBIF queries. And we see here, for instance, that this species has 3 GBIF occurrences. This one has 2 GBIF occurrences. And then we also have this AI models that predicts complementary species. In particular, when you don't have GBIF occurrences, the model is still predicting the species that are likely to live in this environment, even if you don't have occurrences in GBIF for that. And I hope this answered the question.
Okay, thank you very much for your clarification, Alexis. We have one more questions addressed to all of you. Do you think that schools or museums that are engaged with citizen science projects could have a role in Cos4Cloud?
Yeah, I can say a few words. So one of the citizen science projects I talked about, People, is actually run by the French Museum. So, of course, yeah, we are clearly interested in collaborating with museums and to let our tools be used in such projects, yeah, for sure.
And I just want to mention, but I am pretty sure that Sonia can complement better the information that I will give you. There is essentially next, coming soon on April and May, we will have a BioBlitz and hackathon, where definitely we want to count with the participation of schools, students, teachers, and coordinator museums or people, because we will work on first testing, for instance, do-it-yourself devices of quality of air. We will work with the camera trap that we are developing. We want to have hands-on activities with the limitation of just the virtual world that we all know that is our reality nowadays. But apart from that, we will keep a lot of activities with the co-design community. And as Ángela mentioned before, on the 10 and 11 of March, we will have a co-design workshop of the mobile app and the expert portal. And we think that we really need all kind of profiles in these activities. Then yes, definitely. I don't know who was doing the question, Ángela, just to mention the name. I think what's Patricia?
Patricia, yes.
Patricia. Yes, definitely, Patricia, you are just welcome to join us in all our activities.
Yeah, and maybe I would like to add just one comment, is that Cos4Cloud per se, do not interact directly with the users, because the users interact with the citizens observatories. And just to remind that most of the citizens observatories has already a lot of previous experience with museums and schools. So basically what we are trying is just to increase the performance of those citizens observatories, interlinking them with these services that we are developing. So yeah, definitely people can work on that. But just keep in mind that most of these citizen observatories has already a large experience with museums and schools as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Tim is also asking, it's a question for Alexis and Santi. How exactly does artificial intelligence match up photos? For example, it is recognition, color, patterns, shapes, light reflection, or something else? For those who are not expert on artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I think I can try to answer to that. So basically, it's called neural networks, the technologies we are using, and they are learning repeated patterns in the data. So that means that if the discriminant pattern for a flower is its color, it will learn the color, but if it's the shape, it will learn the shape. So indeed, it can learn anything that is visible in the image. It will just do some kind of statistical inference from the data and will learn the most frequent patterns of this species and the most discriminants against the other species.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add, Santi, related to this question?
You're muted.
You're muted. Yeah, you're
Yeah, I can add nothing else in this particular question, Ángela.
Okay, thank you. Also, someone is asking, I would like to know more about the design about interoperability between services. Ramin is asking this.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting question. Well, during the first period in the package, Cos4Cloud has a specific package related to the interoperability. It's the work package 2. And the first approach that we implemented is use a STA standard. This is a standard that was created in another European project. And more related to the sensor things, and also we are creating another option based on Darwin Core standard, Darwin Core archive standard that is more is near to the biodiversity context, and is very anyone that publish information in GBIF or knows the TADWI conference, something like that, know this kind of a standard, and we want to create this another option to facilitate the integration of the another in the fair approach to integrate the biodiversity citizen observatories in the Cos4 Bio. So the first thing that we are trying to do is create a mapping with the different name that the citizen observatories could have, and create this layer to map all the information, and in this way can unify the information and standardize it using this kind of standards.
I can maybe add something about taxonomy. So
yeah,
as you know, there is a lot of different taxonomic checklists. So each citizen observatory has its own checklist. What we agreed on is that each observatory will keep its own way to manage taxonomy, but when we share data and for all common things, we will rely on the GBIF backbone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we are using this list of backbone in the service of search by species and in the identification process also. Yeah.
Maybe just to add a little bit, just keep in mind that in this first stage, we are trying to interact or integrate different citizen observatories very much related to biodiversity. And that's why now Alexis and Santiago was commenting some of the challenges of working just with biodiversity. In the future, we are planning to expand the scope of these services to a much wider applications, including environmental observations. And it will be even much more challenged because there are much more differences. Also, one of the challenges, in the European Open Science Cloud is still the process of defining the interoperability, and the methods are still an open question. So I think that interoperability, as in many cases, will remain, somehow an open issue that we will try to adapt as long, all depending of the new recommendations from the European Open Science Cloud. Keep in mind that in the European Open Science Cloud, they try to interact with any kind of topic. So it's much more challenging, these ideas of interoperability, but we hope that we will end up at least with some few recommendations, and we will try to adapt Cos4Cloud according to those recommendations, final recommendations. So yeah, I understand. Well, always we wanted to have the final interoperability tools or the methods and standards, but it's, I would say, a living activity that we will try to adapt depending of the new ideas that comes particularly from the European Open Science Cloud.
Jaume, I don't know if it's also interesting comment that related to these different contexts, biodiversity and environmental, the first thing that we did in the implementation is create a common, I don't know if I can say, a common framework, a common skeleton that we are using, that we want to use in the dynamic way to implement from this common infrastructure, from this common skeleton, implement the biodiversity portal and another different portal based on environmental observation. That is also a challenge. And all of this code is in a public GitHub repository, and we created also a Dockerization of this system that anyone can deploy locally in your system and customize for their own goals. And I think that is very, very important question.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, all of you. Ramin also asked if PPSR is playing a role somewhere. I don't know what is PPSR. PPSR, so I don't know.
It's like RGPD, I guess, but
okay.
personal data.
I don't have a technical background. So.
Public participation in scientific research. It's an extension of the Darwin Core. Yeah, and probably it's part of this idea. As Santiago and Alexis mentioned, we are using now Darwin Core, which is, well, I don't know if we maybe it's too technical issues, but anyway, it's a way to define more or less the way that the data is described. And with public participation in scientific research is an extension, considering particularly several aspects of citizens' science. And we think that we will probably need to address this. And it is also part of this ongoing interoperability, because now there are even some discussions if the public participation scientific research core need to be improved, to ensure interoperability. And that's why I mentioned this idea of living issue, because it's not completely finally, it was one of the proposals, which I think it was a very nice contribution, but probably this needs to be refined a little bit more. And that's why we are aware on these ongoing activities. In Europe, there are several activities, particularly, for example, there was a cost action in which they try to extend this idea of the PPSR and also to connect with other proposals that are coming now from North America and also from Australia. That's the always problems. There are several movements, and now we are trying somehow to harmonize all of them, but it's not something that has been ended. And that's why we need to be aware of the new versions and things like that. And probably we will need to adapt some ideas of Cos4Cloud according to that new ideas that will come in the future.
Great, thank you very much, Jaume, for your answer. We have another question from Piera. Will the tools be available in different languages? Will there be tools or roadmaps to reach country, specific organizations, stakeholders? Because he guessed that citizen science is not as easy to launch in every country. I agree. So this is a good question.
Can answer for some of the service I talked about, maybe. So for instance, concerning common names, we are using an international database, so that includes many common names in many regions, but as you guess, it's always incomplete. And so in Plantnet tools themselves, people can edit the common names, add them, vote on these names, and that's very important for the adoption in local countries. We have seen that in a big program with schools in Czechia, for instance. And so it's really important to have these common names. And so we really encourage people to edit this data and to make it live. And yeah, and for Plantnet applications, we are using a platform that is called Poe Editor. Poe Editor, I can put the link here. And it allows also the participants to Plantnet to suggest translations of the application. So currently we are running in 23 languages. And so that for us, that's the only way to manage that. I mean, if you want multiple languages, you need the community to participate, because we won't never be able to do that ourselves. So I don't know if this is something we want to do for the expert portal, for instance, or if it has already been discussed or not, but that could be a very interesting topic in the co-design sessions and things like that, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just want to add too that part of this technological part that we are talking today, we also, well, the person in charge of this part is not here now. That is Soacha from Earthwatch, and we are working on the expoliation and the dissemination of the services. So we are working on searching which stakeholder will be willing to use these services, and we are looking to implement these services in other projects and organizations, etc. at the end of the project, so the services does not dead when the Cos4Cloud funding dead. So yeah, so we are working in both with this exploration plan and also implementing all these languages in the services.
Yeah, maybe just to add that this problem is not only, obviously for citizen science is very much important, because we deal with people, and some people out of the academy. In the academy, more or less people has adopted English as a standard way to communicate things. But when you are dealing with, or you are interacting with people, in many cases people want to do that activity in their own local languages. And as Alexis mentioned, even if we are thinking in terms of biodiversity, using their own local names. And yeah, I fully agree with Alexis that this should be, based on this idea of collaborative systems in which people can participate. We are exploring, and particularly Santiago has explored also this idea of using these automatic systems that translate. But you know that in some cases, automatic translation creates these weird sentences and things like that. But nevertheless, maybe it could be in some cases a kind of first stage of communication. But yeah, I think that the best is to engage. Part of this co-design or part of these co-activities will be engage people, and some people can participate basically in this and say, look, I think that the best I can do is to help in translation. That all these people will be really very welcome, because I think it's a way to have it in as many languages as possible. And we think this is also part of the challenges within the European Open Science Cloud, if they want to introduce those services all over the Europe, taking into account just in Europe the number of different languages we should think of.
Okay, thank you very much, Jaume, and all for your comments. We don't have more questions, so I would like to invite all the attendants to unmute the micro and ask themselves anything or any comment they would like to share with us. Or ask the questions on the chat, whatever you prefer. Okay, we can wait a couple of minutes, and if we don't have any more questions, comments, or suggestions, I think we can wrap up the webinar.
One question. Interesting slides. Is there a way for us to get at these slides to go back to certain points? So I was specifically interested in Alexis' slides and Alexis' slides.
Share. I can share directly the Google Slides. Maybe this could be the simplest. Or I don't know if ECSA you were planning to.
Alexis, what I suggest, we have a slide shared.
Yes,
and I suggest to put all these slides in this channel of a slide share, so it will be
perfect
to anyone.
So yeah, tell me the PDF you will need, or
yeah, the PDF.
It could be the PDF or a PowerPoint, whatever you want, and we can upload it on the Cos4Cloud SlideShare channel in the website of Cos4Cloud, and you have the link to access to the SlideShare with all the Cos4Cloud presentations that are public.
I'm sure we'll make the video available as well after the webinar, so we can put a little news item on the Cos4Cloud website with a link to the slides, a link to the video, and then it's all in one place for people.
Perfect. Since I have been sharing a lot of links with you, I have summarized the links to register to the co-design workshop, the link to register to Cos4Cloud newsletter, and the link to fill in the survey so you can provide us with feedback about how do you think about this webinar.
Very Sonia, thank you for the explanation. Okay, so anyone who wants to comment or suggest anything? Okay, so let's wait 1 minute more and okay, so if you don't have any more comments or questions, suggestions, or anything you would like to share with us, you also can find our communication email on our website. So if you have comments or questions later on, you can also ask them and we will answer them as soon as possible. And I would like to thank you again, everyone, for having joined us today, and all the speakers for their excellent presentations. It has been a pleasure. And I think we can finish now. We can wrap up now the webinar, if you agree. So perfect. So thank you very much and bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Goodbye.